sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or Tom at trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
5:30. Hello, how are you? I see this thing in the corner of my eye. I can't see Kenny because I got my cockeyed glasses on today. I was sitting, we just finished with Joe Dugan from the South Carolina Tea Party.
That is one hard-working man.
He is. And he's an older guy. He's not a young guy. He's retired and, and he just, wherever, I just felt so sorry for him. Wherever he was like, struggling with 5 people around him and he's got a clipboard.
Exhausted.
Yeah. It's much easier just ranting and raving sitting in this seat than that. But I was sitting waiting to go up to the podium, and I had purchased a pair of reading glasses that were $20-$30. I usually get the Costco readers, and you
need to get like a 6-pack or something.
Yeah, I have all that, but I wanted something that didn't have a rim here and all that. So I found these in Walgreens, and not these, the pair I had. But they just needed to, you adjust these a little bit. So I adjusted it like that.
Snap.
It snapped right in half. These were, not these. These were my very good ones. Now, they're $30.
Yeah, that's expensive for readers.
Yeah, I know
isn't it?
people that have glasses that are $3,000 eyeglasses with jewels and everything. This is $30, right?
I know.
So I said, no, because I didn't have time because we were rushed around. I usually write my notes and I put them on, I type it up, and I go through a series. I'm giving you some inside stuff, how I speak. And I go through a series of drafts, and then I put it in 20-point type and print it out, so I don't need my glasses, because it's awkward, particularly with me when I try to involve the audience emotionally, psychologically. I don't want to be going with it like this. So when my glasses, but I didn't have time to do that, so I only wrote it out, and I didn't write it that big. So my glasses broke. I got my spare glasses, and I put them on, and they're like this on my head, right? They don't fit. So I go, I can't do that. So I got up there to speak, and I just relied on my eyes to see. But I knew the material well enough, but I did miss a couple of points. The audience does not know, but I did miss a couple of points. So I guess if I didn't miss those points, there would have been a few more standing ovations. Who knows? Could have been. Tom Trento.
Glasses probably pop because your head's too big.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Tom Trento, Trento Vision.
This entirely.
On 5:09 in the afternoon on a, what day is it? Is it Monday? On a Monday afternoon.
It's only Monday.
Another weird thing. I fly Continental, which doesn't exist anymore, and I've been flying it for a long time. It's now United. And when I made this flight on United to go to Myrtle Beach, I kept going back to United to select the seats. It kept saying, you can't select them now. You got to select them when you're at the gate. I said, all right, that's bizarre. When I checked in the other day, it took me to U.S. Air.
What?
United booked me through United to Myrtle Beach through U.S. Air.
Oh, God.
And see, they have this thing called the Star Alliance. It's been going on for about a year or two. And it's becoming just one big conglomerate of flights. So I flew on U.S. Air, and I've been, I'm a super duper whatever with United. Yeah. And you don't have all those perks on U.S. Air.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a bummer. Next time I'm going to call United and go, what are you sending me on? In India Air or something?
India turboprops or what? Yeah.
And I told the guy, I said, could I have a priority handling on my bag? Because I was on a tight deadline with these things. Nope, you don't get that here. You're not high enough. Well, I'm high enough over in United for that. But in any event, it's a tough world for us. It's tough.
Another tough day in America
Yes,
for you.
it's tough. So it's 10 minutes now after 5 o'clock, our third hour. And,
It's going fast.
Yeah, it's going fast. We had our first hour, Alan Kornman called in. You guys, Mike and Mark, were at the Christian Summit on Islam. We're going to talk a little more about that because we're not done with that. There's some key points we pushed to the third hour. Then we talked about the Tea Party. We're sharing our adventure, our experiences with you folks. And there's serious points of application that we'll make here because this is not ordinary radio. This is national security radio. We're not here just to entertain you, though that happens. We're here to educate you, as we've said, so that you understand these principles, but more importantly, to have the information go through your head, into your heart, down your legs to your feet, and you move your feet in an activistic way. We are doing comprehensive activism or holistic activism. That's a good term.
Holistic.
This is holistic activism.
Yeah, that's got to appeal to you,
Yeah.
sir. Oh, holistic. That sounds so universalist.
Holistic activism. I like that term. Get the website, holisticactivism.com. But that's what we're doing here because we are, folks, in a civilization battle. We have a cultural battle going on, an ideological battle going on. And whereas there's constantly in a democracy, in a republic, there's constantly competing ideologies that want to rule the day. Historically in America, most of them have been benign. On occasion, the bad ones, communism, fascism, these sort of things, raise their ugly head. And we fight battles overseas to help others, but those things seep into the U.S. as it did during the Cold War here. We had to fight the communist element in the United States. Well, in a very real sense, the Islamic element that's infiltrated the United States is infinitely more dangerous than communism because it's theologically infused. There's an eschatological or an eternal component. The stupid communists, when they die, they become, as Bertrand Russell said, a banquet for the worms. It's the end. So all they want to do is live life here and do the best they can. Conversely, with a Muslim, the battle has an eternal payment for it. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do here, they spend eternity not annihilated where there's no sense and no pain and no anything like the communists, but in eternal damnation. And if you've ever read Islamic material about what occurs in hell, you burning oil is poured on your skin until your skin is all peeled off. Then it regrows and the burning oil is poured on you again. There's some of the most horrific visual, emotional, psychological, evil compositions of pain and torture the human mind can imagine. But tactically, they were used by Muhammad to scare the hell out of people to do his bidding.
Scare the hell into people.
And here's the thing. One thing I did learn down at this conference, and I knew this, but I really didn't know it.
In the Greek language, I'm able to interpret the New Testament Greek. There's levels of knowledge. One is gnosko, which is you go beyond knowing it. You have a full, complete understanding. That's what happened to you. You got the full, complete understanding.
Right. Exactly. Understand. I knew I knew the Muslims believed, in the Quran and the doctrine and everything, but this is internal. This belief that they have in the Quran is internal. So when you're talking about, you're describing that scene, of burning in hell, of skin coming off your body. They believe that. I mean, to their core.
They believe it.
I mean, one thing that was said to me was like when they memorize the Quran at an early age, and this is not, some kid over in Pakistan. I'm talking about the average American type Muslims who were taught to, memorize the Quran and memorize verses. They actually honestly believe that, and it is a life-changing choice to leave Islam. It is it is so ingrained inside their soul and their being. I mean, they are devout by by theology. That's their soul is theology, and for them to, that's the reason when people think that that they're being insulted or something, they take it actually personally to heart as an insult if you criticize their religion, because they are just fervent about it. And which is actually a good thing to be if you're a Christian, if you want to convert people over, or to a Jewish
If your
person.
belief is in accord with the truth, fervency has a productive end.
Yes,
If your belief is accord with that which is true. If your belief is not in accord, communism, fascism, Islam, if it's not true, then it's got a deadly consequence.
And
history
I'm
bears
talking-
that out.
And I'm not talking about the jihadis. I'm not talking about, all the other knuckleheads.
You're
out
talking
there.
about the regular Joe and the
regular-
neighbor next door?
Yeah,
The
'cause
rank and file.
it's religion is it's religion first, state second, okay, and religion is the state in their mind, and so therefore anything that contradicts their belief of the state is contradicting the religion. So America naturally contradicts Islam, so therefore they
point.
have an angst against America.
You know what would be good? To throw out, this is Tom, CJ, Mike, Mark. We're discussing in this third hour, we're discussing a summit, a serious meeting that Mike, Mark, Karen, and Alan, 4 of our United West folks, went to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? It was 3 days? Thursday, Friday,
Yes, yes.
Saturday. And the summit was designed to teach Christians. Were they evangelical Christians for the most part?
It was pretty much so, and also
Protestants, any Catholics in there?
it was primarily Catholics, not so much Protestants. It was more just
More Catholics?
Yeah. When you say so, Mike,
in a Protestant church? No, probably the other way.
No.
around.
or was it the other way around?
No, there was a good deal of Protestants.
Yeah, more
Or was it?
Protestants.
Okay, I wasn't too in
Yeah,
tune on
Catholics
the
aren't
Protestant.
too geared on. They don't do evangelism. Catholics for the most
Right.
part.
Even I know that.
Yes.
I'm not a Catholic.
What was my point? I forgot my point. Where were we going with that? Oh, what we're doing. They went to this summit designed to. Point number 1: a major church is having a summit to address the threat of Islam. That's pretty
well,
serious
no.
stuff.
They didn't regard it as a threat. They
No,
they
but-
weren't presenting it as a threat.
But the context of the message was that, hey, there's a entity out there that is trying to destroy our church and our way of life and our
Well, that's a
being.
threat.
And,
How could that not be a threat?
and so
Maybe they didn't use those terms. Did
Right.
they ever say the threat of Islam? They ever use that? If you don't remember, they didn't say it well
No,
enough. They certainly
no.
didn't say it well
And
enough.
really, it was more in the form of they're concerned about the dawa.
Oh, they're okay.
Okay.
The summit that was held in Orlando the other
Right.
day.
No.
What was it?
Well, that's what you were saying earlier.
no, we'll go on.
Well, we got to establish what the purpose of this summit was.
The purpose of the stuff was define the enemy and who they are and and what this satanic other influences that's coming into
Okay, I get it.
the church.
All right. Well, then the question to throw out there, the theoretical question to throw out there is this for all the lame-brained people in the audience that listen, and we have some
And I-
soft-headed people, that listen. We have some bad guys that listen, but most of our people are astute.
Well, I hope they're taking good notes,
yes.
but they're too chicken to call and refute anything that we say. I notice. Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that. 888-565-1470.
For all you chicken Islamists come out there, call us.
But I'm throwing a theoretical question out there. Is it possible for an ideology to be developed that has adherents, people following it, that once they form into a group, that group becomes deadly to the United States of America? Is that theoretically possible?
And we don't mean this from a Tea Party perspective either.
No, I mean just theoretically, is it possible for a group of people to believe in a system, an ideology, but the ideology, when implemented through the behavior of its adherents, is deadly, dangerous, and destructive to that which we know to be America?
Well, that's what's happening now.
Yeah. Well, it's
obviously.
theoretically possible.
Yes.
Now, what would, if we had to, I'm moving the people on the left
Okay.
over in our direction. If we say that's theoretically possible, I'd like to have somebody argue with a theoretical question like that. Okay? They
Okay.
can't. Okay. What would it look like? What would be the 2 or 3 characteristics of that ideology that articulated through the behavior of its adherents would be something repulsive to what we know to be America? What would be 2 or 3 characteristics?
Well, first of all, you'd have to get rid of the Constitution.
Okay, so it has to be anti-constitutional.
Okay.
Anti-constitutional, and
Right.
specifically what you would probably see first, and I think what we're seeing now is we would see the restriction on speech. So really the first indicator would be the restriction on free speech.
So this make-believe ideology that's going to harm America, it's going to be anti-constitutional at some points, and you're saying at number 2, at amendment number 2.
Number 1.
Number 1.
Oh, number 1, I say.
Yeah.
And 2. If you want to get to that
And
one.
definitely 2,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that comes later, though.
Well, number 1. So this ideology that's going to harm America will have will be repulsed by the Bill of Rights. Number 1. Did communism, was it repulsed? Did it like or dislike Amendment number 1, free speech?
Oh, hated it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so communism.
Okay.
no
falls into
freedom
that.
of the church.
For the religious aspect of
Yeah.
it, and for the freedom of speech and assembly.
So the whole First Amendment thing
And
is a
assembly.
real.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
First
it-
Amendment
that's
is
the
really
reason they put
key.
it. That's the reason they put it number 1.
Yeah.
Is because once you have the integration of the church and the state, that's where it all starts to crumble. I mean, and that's the reason you have to have that freedom of expression.
All right, so we have an ideology that has adherents that don't like the Constitution, in particular Amendment number 1. What other characteristic would be a red flag about this ideology and its compatibility with America?
It would have to have a
Class, you're involved.
it would have to have a set structure of laws, which would have to be rigidly followed, which would have to have complete adherence. And
Well, what
that
you-
would that would and
Yeah,
it
what you would
to
have is the introduction of foreign laws incorporated into American
well,
laws.
you would either have to
Because they could have their own laws.
Because they
Right.
could have their own separate
Sure, who cares?
issues separately, but what they're trying to do is incorporate that into the fabric of the American court system at the local, state, and federal level.
Right. But you'd also have to have a establishment of some type of overseeing authority, either a state, a god, or some other type of body, a governing body that would be ruled in separate thereof of the United States. There would have to be some.
Oh, so there'd have to be adherence. That's a good point. There'd have to be adherence in this ideology we're saying that's theoretical, that a bunch of people could believe in, and their behavior as a result of their beliefs is going to harm the way America is. You're saying they have to have, the leader has to be someone other than the president of the United States.
Yeah, and they have to have an adherence to that leader. If you want to look at fascism, it would have to be the state of Germany with its leader as its separate entity, in
Okay.
religion or theology, and also it could be actually none of those two above. It could just be the whole ideology in and of itself.
Okay, now class, let's look at Islam. Okay, we can go into this much more deeply, but for the sake of the little brief illustration, Islam is an ideology. I mean, we've been studying the reliance of the traveler, the Quran, the Shurs, all this stuff. It has an ideology, has a systematic set of principles that have a comprehensive understanding of what it's all about. It has adherents, it has followers.
Mm-hmm.
Does Islam in its pure doctrine support free speech, assembly,
No.
I mean,
separation between church and state?
I actually have a book here that says it doesn't.
Well, folks, that's the end of the case. Islam, in its pure doctrine, can't coexist with the First Amendment. We didn't even get to the
2,
other
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
27,
8, 10. Right.
The Bill of Rights, the other 9 of them.
I actually did a comparative study of the Bill of Rights to Islam, and where none of them actually coincide.
them at all.
0 of them, and I actually
Zero
went,
intersections.
and actually I listed them all out. I went through each one of them, said where don't they match? Where are they? Where do we not coexist?
Then where does America go wrong? Where do good citizens, good friends of ours, family members of ours, they hear us speaking about this and they're
Mm-hmm. I
going,
know, and they
"Whoa,
think
you
we're
guys are
whack
whack
jobs."
jobs.
One of the other
We're
things
systematically,
where-
from an intellectual point of view, we failed in this little analogy.
well, I got it because I learned it at this conference. Okay,
No, where have we failed in our little analogy just now?
where we failed.
I said, where systematically have we intellectually failed in designing our little analogy just now? And then compared it to Islam? Where have we failed intellectually?
Well, we have
Well,
not
that's-
failed intellectually at that. Where we have failed and will continue to fail is convincing people of the validity
no,
of
but
the
that wasn't
argument.
my point. My point was the three or four of us. Are you with us?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's
get
here
it.
a little. Yeah, he had a lot
Actually,
of
I
cookies.
You got
understand.
to participate.
I
You went to
understand
this
your
thing.
question. I'm going to answer it in a different way, which it's actually going to answer the question that you
Okay,
asked.
yeah, okay.
Is what I learned, one of the other things I learned at the conference was, if you're going to believe in an ideology, if you're going to believe in anything, I don't care whether it's Islam or Christianity or Judaism, right? And you don't know your own core doctrines, you don't know your own core beliefs, then you're not going to be able to communicate that effectively when an enemy or another one comes to play.
Boom, bingo. There's the answer.
And
Part
so-
of the answer. Yeah.
Which is
Well-
what I was going to say is
Right.
the people who are not convinced by your argument don't actually believe in anything. They just want life
So
to kind of
if-
wash
Yep,
over them.
yep.
And they want their stuff and their comforts and everything else, and they want to be left alone.
So if you don't
and
have a-
literally,
While the thief is breaking into their
literally
house.
until somebody comes and shoots them in the head or steals everything right out of their
tough
house,
game, man. You gotta dive
they're
in here.
not. They're not going to
Well,
be
what
in the game.
We
What
won't let Mark
was,
speak.
I know I wasn't done. Is what I was trying to say. If you're going to be an apologist,
You weren't even there, so what difference?
I know you guys are there. You tell me what happened. No, what I'm saying, if you're going to be an apologist, if you just want to be a defensive, if you want to just be a pacifist, a passive apologist, okay, but yet you do not have the core ideological belief of what you believe in, then someone's going to come out and steamroller over you. Like for example, you get someone who's dogmatic about their belief and says, I know my doctrine better than you do, and I can tell you where your doctrine is wrong on the other side. There is, the church is so weak
Amen.
because you would see that come in by people would just ask them about the questions of the Trinity. Well, what's the Trinity? Well, how can you have, how is
Preach
it,
it, brother. Preach
No,
it.
no, what
You
I'm
got the spirit.
No, what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, if you're going to call yourself
This is coming from someone who's not a Christian. Go ahead.
as an atheist, if you're going to
Well,
call
you're not an atheist.
no, I'm an atheist. I'm a Unitarian. If you're going to call yourself what you are,
Excuse me.
is believe in what you believe in. I'm at core heart a constitutionalist. I believe in all this stuff, and believe I understand where my principles are. Yet someone who comes in from their side as a Christian and they want to go out and have an interfaith dialogue with a Muslim, you're going to get your butt handed to you because they're devout believers and they know it, and they can rip apart your religion in a heartbeat if you're not well versed in your religion.
And the problem
Excellent point.
is to what you're saying. The problem is in this country is that the people who really do hold these strong beliefs, the people who are following the letter of the law of Islam, those are the ones who are involved. Those are the ones who are committed to their cause, and those are the ones who are participating in the political process and the public institutions at a level that everybody else isn't participating in. And so that's how their agenda is getting across, because everybody else is sitting it out at home.
Right. And when I get passionate about a subject or an issue, I try to learn as much as I can about the subject. And for example, when I want to go into argue Muslim about Sharia, I better know his doctrine as well as I know my doctrine. And that's the reason I carry this stupid book around with me, this atrocious book around, because I want to know their doctrine. So when they say, no, that's not Sharia, I said, no, damn it,
Yeah,
look right here.
yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
But I'm thinking also, like,
that's the battle.
I'm thinking of all the Christians who sat out the election and didn't vote, and there was massive,
Well, I claim they're not Christians.
tens
claim they're not Christians
tens
because they don't know
of
the doctrine.
millions of dollars spent by Christian groups to do outreach in the Christian community to tell them this White House, this administration is anti-Christian. They stand for everything that you're against. And those people still didn't get out and vote. So if they're not going to get out and vote when a fellow Christian tells them that it's in their best interest to do it, then why would you think that they would actually go get involved when somebody else tells them, oh, and by the way, there's this outside threat. Don't build a bridge of peace to that. Here's how that's evil, and try and get involved in that. They won't even, they won't even take the first step for their own beliefs. Why would they even bother to consider going outside what
No,
their
it's an excellent
beliefs
point,
are.
and it's a condemnation on the shallowness of a Christian's understanding of why he believes what he believes, and that's the issue. If you're a Christian out there, or a Jew in this case, because Jews and Christians are the target group of Islam, you need to know what you believe. You need to know your doctrines. This is the what part. I believe that God exists. I believe that God is personal. Then you need to know why you believe what you believe. Well, why do you believe that that's true? You need to have something to support that. If you don't know what you believe, you certainly don't know why you believe, then this irresistible force comes along, Islam, and they know enough that if they don't defeat the enemy, they go to hell. And they're operating at that level, which is a very visceral level. It's a lethal level. But once you confront that visceral, lethal level, that's really very superficial intellectually. Once you confront that with what a Jew or a Christian knows and why they know it, then you stop them in their tracks and you create discord, existential crisis in their life. That's what we need to do. You're never going to get a Muslim to change the way he thinks until you cause him to have crisis in his thinking patterns. And we're very good at doing that.
And I'll
You cause a crisis in my thinking pattern like almost every day.
and I'll quote what you
Crisis management here at Trento Vision.
And I'll say everything.
What, Mark? You have to start breaking down soon.
Okay, and I'll say everything you just said in a couple of sentences. If you know yourself, you know your enemy, you will not be defeated in 100 battles.
Amen.
That's exactly what everything you just said.
Sun Trento.
Sun Trento is exactly what it was, because that's the art of war, and we are in a war. And if you don't know yourself, you don't know your personal inner self, you don't know who your doctrines are, your theology is, that's the know yourself part with Sun Tzu.
You know what? As we continue with Trento Vision and we go after President Obama, because he is capitalizing on the superficial level of understanding that Jews and Christians have about their belief system, about the Constitution, all of this. He's capitalizing with it, but then he's joining, and I use this in my talk. I never referred to him at all as Obama, just the monarch. My talk the other day. As we go through this and show how the president is taking advantage of exactly what we just delineated, the lack of understanding on the part of Jews and Christians as to what we believe in terms of core principles, why we're here, what our purpose is, how do we determine right or wrong, and where are we going. If we can't answer the core principles of our belief system about life, forget about the argument over Jesus Christ. The core principles, if we can't answer those, it's wave the white flag and let them put the black flag up over the U.S.
Yeah, that's what
House.
they want to do.
Yep. So, what are you pointing to me? What are you going?
I'm pointing to you because we have a caller on the line.
Good.
And her name is Liz.
Hi, Liz. How are you? With Tom, CJ, Mike, Mark, and the whole world.
Hi, Tom. How are you? Have you guys talked about the Marxist Church yet?
We have not spoken about the Marxist Church. Tell us about that, because we know the socialist church that's out there, that's for sure.
Well, you know, Yuri Bezmenov was a KGB agent who defected in the 80s, and he's got videos all over YouTube, and he goes into detail, and he explains Soviet subversion, and he explains the goal of Soviet ideological subversion. One of the goals, of course, is to replace real institutions with fake institutions. And I don't think Americans understand enough that many of our churches have been infiltrated from the inside. And I've even read Islamist articles where they call these Christians Marxist Christians, one of which would be the Westboro Baptist Church, where they focus on anti-war demonstrations. We've got the Episcopal Church focusing on homosexual marriage, all of which are meant to undermine the family and American values, Judeo-Christian values. So a lot of these churches, like UCC, Obama's church, I've had friends who attended there, and they're quite Marxist, these churches.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying in terms of the methodologies that Marxism uses to change public opinion. and for surreptitious infiltration. Whether or not classically they have adopted Marxist view.
Well, I think Trinity Church does.
Who's Trinity? Which one?
Liberation theology.
Well, again, that's more. We're being very precise here with the transition from capitalism to socialism to Marxism. Marxism is no easiest way of understanding Marxism is no privately owned land. These churches haven't moved to that point, though some of them project that. But certainly the Marxist. About in 2007, I was in a meeting in Washington, D.C. I was with some people, and they said, come on, come with me. And we walked down a couple of blocks and turned a couple of corners and got to a place and went in a back room. And about 12 people came in. Several of them were veterans of the Cold War. And they were counter-espionage, counter-Marxist intelligence people that fought the battle at several levels, including using radio and other modalities. And we had a long discussion on the similarities of Islam using Marxist methodologies to infiltrate itself into the U.S. and then turn to some of the Cold War guys who have fought this battle and said, okay, we're going to need some direction on how you defeated the communists with the same sort of methodologies. So
Hence Team B.
Yeah. And then the Team B thing came out of that.
Yeah.
And Liz, you're right. The Marxist influence in the churches is very, very bad in America today.
Well, and also you got to start stripping away the morality of everything that you have. I mean, you start out stripping the ideas of marriage, and so now you have marriage is some willy-nilly thing. Now you have the structure of
Break down the social structure.
Of the social structure. Where we're finding out, and we'll segue this to another day, but now that the new homosexuality is going to become pedophilia. So pedophilia.
What?
Pedophilia is going to become the new homosexuality, where it is socially acceptable. Where now the pedophilia is seen as it's just it's something that the person's born with. They can't help it. So now it becomes a socially acceptable thing where they can actually start
The defining down of deviance.
And if you're a Marxist.
And that's how you start stripping away the morality. Is okay now pedophilia is okay. Now we should allow pedophilia marriage. Oh, okay, Islam's okay still because now, and that's where it all kind of goes towards.
Now watch this.
And towards that, I think that that's why American Muslims are so quiet on the issue of gay marriage, because you would think they would be natural foes of that homosexual agenda. I think it's in their best interest to define down what is marriage and change the rules of how we perceive that so that they can bring their marital customs here to the United States.
You've got to break it down
first. If you can have two men or two women marrying each other and having children, then why not have 4 wives?
Or if you take the perspective, we're going to red team this for a second. You still with us, Liz?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you opened up an interesting conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna red team this. All of us, Liz, and you're with all of us. We're going to set a course to destroy America, and we take a step back and we go, it's a pretty big task. Let's just hit it head on. We go, that's not going to work. Well, let's slowly crumble its foundation.
It's miserable house from within.
Yeah.
let's crumble it when it's all broken down. Then we'll just roll in and mow over them, and we'll own them. So
that's right.
That's where we are, folks.
Tom, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is that we've heard from former Muslims, we've heard from former Iranian revolutionaries. People have turned away from Islam, and I think that it's really clear that both communism and Islam are a process of destruction at their core.
Yep.
They really don't present a government that can govern everyone in a fair and healthy way in the end, but they are successful at the destruction process.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to let you go right now, Liz. Thanks for calling.
Thank you for calling, Liz.
Very, very good point.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
good observations.
Yeah, and Mark, you're right. I read the explanatory memorandum of Muslim Brotherhood. the other day. Again, it's 18 pages. Everybody should
Yeah.
read it. I read it. I said, we're going to do this on the show. We're going to break this thing down on the show.
Right.
But they lay out that the process is a slow civilization jihad to break America down. And they go through all these institutions as to how we're going to do it. You know what's at the center of everything? The center, the Islamic center.
Yeah.
They develop a whole theory of the Islamic center being the hub of the Islamic wheel in that part of the community. And the Islamic center includes the mosque, which is really a military training base. And
Yeah.
the religious part of Islam, it's a religion according to the IRS, so it enjoys religious protection in the U.S. We're going to have to try to get that separated out in some way, you know, in our battle, or win the hearts and minds of Muslims. But we got to give them a lifeboat if they want to come out of Islam.
And explain. You teased this earlier. Why
Yeah.
can't the Christian church provide a lifeboat, a refuge for where to go?
All right, the evangelical church and the evangelism of the evangelical church came to its own in the 30s and 40s. There was an effort because up until then, for the most part, America had been a Christian country. There wasn't opposition with does God exist? Should we go to church on Sunday?
Right.
You know, all the liquor stores were closed. All of this.
I
Once
remember that.
once the secularism came into the U.S., the evangelical community had to defend its belief system, and once people said, "I don't want to believe this," they and started going in other directions. They had to say, "But not only is it good for society, it's good for you personally." So there was the evangelism, the process of going out and sharing what you know to be the solution to cancer with others occurred. Well, there was no large Muslim population in the United States back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s of any significance.
However, there were a lot of Marxist educators, and so what Islam didn't start, the education system
I got
did.
2 minutes to finish this. For over 100 years, the evangelical community had been sending missionaries to Muslim countries, and the two schools I went to sent 20% of the missionaries. A missionary would spend 30 years of their life in Muslim communities and would lead 1, 2, 3 people to Christianity. Whereas if they spent 30 years in another country, people would convert and say, I don't want to be an African, you know, throwing my child on a fire. Christianity makes more sense. Well, Islam, they couldn't break into that, right? For a lot of reasons, because it's very tribal and all the stuff you heard about. So the evangelical church never developed the skills to minister to Muslims because the need was never there. It only was overseas and was a failure. It never occurred in the U.S. And if there never was an outreach program to them, there was never then a safety net or a lifeboat to bring them into if they
Right, that
came
makes
out of
sense.
that. This is all brand new stuff for the evangelical
So
church.
this is something that they've never had to put
Never had to do
a conversion camp or anything
Never.
like that. Never.
Never.
Okay.
And for other groups, there exists an infrastructure designed to help them out.
Like Melinda, though, well, he had a perfect opportunity because he could lead them and bring them into a community of Christians in Uganda.
Right.
Whereas there is no,
There's nothing like that here.
There's nothing like that here.
Nope. And so it's never developed a necessity for, we'll call it a lifeboat, a Muslim lifeboat. It's going to have to happen. Because otherwise, like Father Zacharias out in wherever he is, but he broadcasts over the air and leads many, many Muslims to Christianity, but they can't even leave their family, and
Right.
they can't be public about it.
Right.
So they live this kind of weird life, otherwise they get killed. Unbelievable. But we'll do more of this. We're going to have to leave you right now a little early because we got a few things to do. Tom Trento, CJ, Mike, Mark, we're all here. The boys are back in town. We've rejoined CJ, who has admirably on Friday with Peter Feynman communicated good stuff to you guys. We're so glad to be back. Thank you for watching, for listening. Be sure, we didn't even do any of our commercials. We're the worst commercial. Nobody wants to advertise with us. Organic Gold, Rich Swire, Paul Vallely, what else? And now we'll tighten some of that stuff up. We get into this, we enjoy what we do. and we thank you for watching. We need your donations. Go to TrentoVision.tv, donate security.